Thank you everyone for coming to this session with me. I'm Lisen Schultz, I'm from the Stockholm Resilience Center, and I will talk about planetary boundaries. But before I begin, it would just be super interesting for me to know who you are and what you already know about this topic. So how many people, raise your hands, know about Stockholm Resilience Center? A couple, yeah? Nice. After this session, you will all know about us. And how many people know about planetary boundaries? Many more people. Wonderful. That's good. But I will take it from scratch and talk about the latest as well so that everyone gets something out of this session. So what does a sustainability scientist do here at tech&fest? Well, I was invited to share with you the latest from our research around the frame that we all somehow have to live within and create within and innovate within. And we call that frame planetary boundaries. It emerges out from work from the Stockholm Resilience Center back in 2009, thanks to a big collaboration between scientists from the climate system, but also oceans and ice and forests and so on, to sort of put a big puzzle together to understand the Earth as a whole and what it takes for us as humans to continue living and thriving here on the Earth. So, as you know, the climate panel, IPCC, have concluded that this decade that we live in now, the decisions that we take this decade will shape the conditions on Earth for thousands of years ahead. It's true. So the future is very much in our hands. So given that responsibility, I think it's only fair that we zoom out a bit and take a longer view of the climate on the Earth to begin with. Laura, will you click, please? Oh, yeah, that's the long view. So this is a fantastic graph exploring the climate variation across our whole history as a species on planet Earth. And in the very early days, as you can see, the climate is shifting up and down. It's quite variable, shifting between Ice Age and Middle Ice Age. We live as nomads, we travel around the planet and take what we can get from nature. But in the latest Middle Age, the Holocene, the climate stabilizes here, which allows us to discover agriculture, to settle down, to build cities, and then eventually the Industrial Revolution. So our place-based civilizations emerged in this climate stability, but now we're actually pushing the Earth outside this narrow corridor of conditions that enabled our development in the first place. 2024 was the warmest year on record, and the last 3 years have been over 1.5 degrees warmer than pre-industrial climate. It's actually been 100,000 years since the Earth was this warm. And we're now heading towards 2.6 or between 2.6 and 3.1 degrees of warming by the end of the century. This is warmer than ever experienced by our species. And just to give you a sense of what this means that by 2070, when the kids who just started school turn my age, I'm turning 50 this year, when they turn 50, land areas that have about 1/3 of the human population will be uninhabitable. So we can only imagine what that means for migration patterns, for example. And even with rapid cuts of emissions, climate scientists estimate that there will be decades of overshoot when the warming is over 1.5 degrees before we can turn back into a safe operating space. And the only way we can turn back into a safe operating space is if we keep the ocean and the ecosystems on land healthy. Next. Somehow it doesn't connect over here. But our challenge is not only the climate. Ever since the great acceleration of the human enterprise that took off for real in the 1950s, we have been pushing a number of variables. So you see here on the left the socio-economic trends, and to the right you see the Earth system trends. So GDP growth, urbanization, telecommunications, primary energies use to the left. And then to the right, we see increasing greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, loss of tropical forest, coastal nitrogen that harms the oceans. So the question is, how far can we push the planet before we leave this corridor for human life that I showed on the previous slide? What is the safe operating space for innovation and creativity? Well, the concept of planetary boundaries, if we click again, yes, it worked, was launched in 2009, as I said, by a large group of Earth system scientists under the leadership of Professor Johan Rockström as a response to this question. It defines boundaries beyond which we see increasing risk that the Earth system shifts from supporting us to becoming hostile, with accelerated warming, extreme weather events, breakdown in the ecosystems that clean our water and air and produce the food we eat and the materials we need to live and survive. And as you can see, climate change represents only one of the planetary boundaries that we have breached. The others are biodiversity loss, land conversion, freshwater depletion, nutrient pollution, and chemical pollution, novel entities. And the planetary health check of 2025 concluded that the seventh boundary is now breached, as ocean acidification is becoming harmful to marine life. So the two boundaries that we have not yet breached are ozone depletion and air pollution. Both of these have actually been protected by international agreements, showing that politics matter and that collective action is possible. Environmental change is, of course, already costing us lives and money. The cost of insurance is increasing, as is the cost of lower productivity and infrastructure damage. And climate science have become increasingly precise in connecting extreme weather events and human-induced climate change, as we can see in this slide. Let's see if we can get the whole thing here. Oh, it's maybe too dark. No, it works. Okay, cool. So a recent report from the UK government warned that ecosystem collapse is a threat to national security. Of course, there's a lot of talk about national security now, so ensuring that we also see the importance of nature for national security is important. And it's quite strong when the UK government comes out with a statement like this. The Institute and Faculty of Actuaries concluded that the global economy could face a 50% loss in GDP between 2070 and 2090 unless immediate policy action on climate risks are taken. And the World Bank recently came out with a report, Reboot Development, showing that ecosystem restoration is a vital part of securing economic development. And they also identified ways to unlock this potential for investment. Because every 1/10 of a degree warming that we can avoid will save life. So as Professor Johan Rockström said in this address to the UN last year, failure is not inevitable, it is a choice. So this alludes to the need for leadership in politics, in business, in finance, and in civil society. And I think this is where our work on transformation is also really interesting. We are now in what's called a formative moment in the shift from the old fossil fuel-driven linear economy to something different, an economy where people's needs are actually met within planetary boundaries, an economy that's bio-based or maybe mineral-based or maybe even regenerative, a future where we achieve the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals by shifting towards renewable energy, sustainable agriculture and healthy diets, and circular industries. But of course, this time in between two systems is the most volatile, uncertain, and turbulent. And this is the time where leaders really need to maintain a steady course of direction while still being very attentive to the present to make space for innovators and investors to develop the solutions. Because if we do this right, the planetary boundaries can in fact give us the next burst of creativity and innovation. To me, meeting the needs of all within planetary boundaries is the most meaningful endeavor I can think of, and it will really require our highest capacity of curiosity, creativity, and also collaboration that I will talk about later in a panel. So I'd like to end here by also inviting you all to connect with us at the Stockholm Resilience Center. We really appreciate working with companies and with investors and with entrepreneurs, because we don't only do science within academia, we always want our science to serve humanity in various ways, and we want to develop our knowledge in collaborations with actors outside academia who also hold knowledge and resources and capacity to act on the science. So please connect with me or with Philip Rohr, my colleague here, if you want to have a more long-term relationship with the Stockholm Resilience Center and stay in touch with the science we do. And with that, I really thank you for your attention and look forward to the panel discussion that will follow.